News that the ANC NEC wants government to declare a national state of disaster to address the energy crisis has been met with extreme scepticism and even outrage. The EFF is opposed on one hand to it, while the main opposition, that's the Democratic Alliance, as well as the Freedom Front Plus, they both say any declaration must be subject to strict scrutiny by Parliament. Well, they fear a repeat of the abuse of power and corruption that happened during the COVID-19 state of disaster. However, columnist and author Bhekisisa Mncube argues that a state of disaster would actually enable government to act a lot more efficiently. And he joins us in studio to further elaborate. Bheki, a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tamila.
Let's talk about it. I mean, I've spoken about how some political parties are actually either against it or they say there needs to be some sense of strict, consultation around it due to their reference of the COVID-19 pandemic. But you say it is actually the way to go. Why so?
Well, Eskom has two problems. One is a money problem. They've been loss-making for many years, and they have debt that close to 400 billion. And the second problem, of course, is an engineering problem. During the Zuma years, Eskom employed an extra 10,000 people. No one in South Africa knows what those people do. So Eskom requires money in the short term, as in tomorrow, and it requires to enlist skills that shouldn't by nature be a permanent appointment. So these are the people who should come to work as Eskom to solve a crisis. So what you do then, you declare a localized state of disaster, which will allow the president to withhold money that is sent to municipalities, because they don't pay that money to Eskom. So before the grants are sent to municipalities, whatever is the estimate of what was owed to Eskom, and what will be used for the following year. All that money, because we are in a state of disaster, is then taken and used to prop up Eskom and solve a crisis that is bigger than just COVID-19, because this threatens the livelihoods of everybody. Big business, small business, people, everyone is affected. And if the president does not act, he faces a nationwide unrest, something worse than the Zuma unrest of 2021.
When you talk about the unrest, you remind me of also a point that you highlighted, the 18.6% NERSA tariff increase. It seems like you're against it, and you're saying, besides your already tight beer budget being affected, you also talk about how it's the ordinary South African that is further put under strain. You're talking about the poor South Africans, those living below the poverty line, and you're saying that will result in a nationwide shutdown unrest, worse, as you mentioned, than the July unrest.
It will be. It will be, because I'm part of the middle class, right? And but every July, you suddenly realize that you're earning less than you did last year. Yeah. And you sort of don't understand what have you done, because you are not spending like a drunken sailor. Then you remember is the electricity tariffs that are kicking in, from our local municipalities, which we know they are already dysfunctional. One of the reasons I decided to come to the studio was that there was no possibility that I would have electricity in the morning, because there was a breakdown, there was something that was happening. So you have load shedding, and then we have localized problems. And we just cannot run a household. How on earth can you run a business, let alone government? That is the question. So we do need the president to really lead. So the National Energy Crisis Committee should be made a subcommittee of cabinet, and it should be chaired by the president. And they must collect the money. They must get the required skills at Eskom. Eskom, when they need something to buy, you cannot use the Public Finance Management Act to run a company. That is to run a government department, because you don't have 3 months to wait between the time you need the service and the time it's delivered. So once we suspend those things like we did for COVID-19, and we make sure that it's managed at the president's office, then we know that the procurement will be done speedily, and there will be money for it. Because you had the Minister of Energy saying that the country is losing R1 billion a month, a day, due to load shedding. Now, economy that has not been performing at optimal level long before the 200 days of load shedding is not going to suddenly survive 2023. So we have to do something extraordinary. We have to be bold. We have to be creative. And we have to do it now.
Yeah, and we've also heard the outgoing CEO, Andre de Ruyter, say that 2023 is going to be the most difficult year when it comes to the energy crisis within the country. But speaking of Andre de Ruyter, there's been a lot of debates around whether or not he was the man for the job. And I just wonder, to you, what's your perspective on what the CEO, the captain, leading this ship called Eskom, what attributes, what skills he's meant to have? Does it matter to you who actually leads Eskom?
Well, it does. But the problem with Eskom is that it's a state-owned enterprise. The ANC is used to the old ideas of meddling in the affairs of the parastatals. Not just to meddle in terms of policy and other things, but they also use, as we know, it emerged from the Zondo Commission, to siphon money to finance the political party. Now, a man like Andrew wasn't going to allow that to happen. And he's gone. He lost the political support that he needed. But there is something that South Africans do. I don't know why they do this. I've worked now for over 25 years. There's something South Africans subordinates do for white managers that they will never do for a manager who's black like me. There's this reverence, there's this respect for suddenly authority. If you're black, you seem not to bring the right type of authority, which is sad. But then this guy was on the right path. Some of the ideas that I'm sharing with you today are the things that he told Cabinet 2 years ago. He said, I need to buy the parts directly from the people who installed it at the power plant. I need to buy diesel directly from someone who actually has a manufacturing plant for diesel, not some third party who is BEE empowered. We can't be talking BEE in the state we are in. We can't be talking affirmative action in the state we are in. What we need to do as a country, led by the president, is to make sure that we put our ducks in a row. There is no reason why it should take 6 months for this government to procure power from neighboring states. It makes absolutely no sense. The president said he would do that 6 months ago.
And it still hasn't
We're still
been
waiting.
Done. We're still waiting. Bheki, seems like we might be waiting a bit longer. Let's see what Sona has in store for us. Of course, you say you have a book there. Briefly, please. Is that your book?
Yeah, that's a book where I've been writing all the columns to the president, the letters to the president.
So it's the president, the Ramaphosa Chronicles is the name of the book by Bhekisisa Mncube. One to definitely grab on and have a read right before the State of the Nation address and get to pick Bheki's brain on what he thinks, of course, the president actually needs to do come State of the Nation address this coming Thursday. All our thanks to Bhekisisa Mncube for joining us right here on the SA Morning.